I guess I'm.
Are you ready, all you fans out there in out there land? I say it's time again. Have mercy, let the congregation say, hey man, it's time for the biggest, baddest party in the world. So get on up, turn it up a notch, and get ready to boogie, baby. Ow!
Welcome to Raptors Weekly for the week of September the 21st. Will joins the Rapcast. Hey, Will.
I'm back.
Well, you're back in voice only, not on the screen, not on print, only in voice.
That's right.
We'll have.
I'm probably better on just audio. So
I'm surprised you have a lot of fans, Will, because I'm getting a few emails from different people asking about what happened to Will, and I'm like, he's not dead.
Well,
they're talking about you like you've gone and you'll never come back, and it's over, and like when's the funeral? It's that kind of feel that I'm getting from the emails, and I got to tell them, no, he's still here. He just can't write for the next little while, but you never know when things can change.
That's right. I am not, in fact, dead. So congratulations to everybody on my continued survival and myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I appreciate that. That's very nice to hear.
You've been watching Jonas at the Eurobasket?
Yeah.
How's he doing?
Yeah, Jonas is. I mean, you guys have talked about it in our last couple podcasts, but like Jonas plays largely the same way. He's the same player he is in Toronto, but it's just that the system is a little bit more oriented for him to succeed. You know, like Lithuania drops him back on pick and rolls. If it's a really bad matchup, they take him out for a more mobile guy. But for the most part, they trust him enough to play defense that just drop him back on pick and rolls. And then, they feed him a lot of pick and rolls on offense as well. And partially because there's just smaller defenders in these international competitions. But yeah, the man's a beast. And the Lithuanian coach knows what he's doing with him. So
yeah, you see the Italy Lithuania game where he was up against Andrea Bargnani. Bargnani didn't actually play that bad in that game. It's just that Jonas just had a better game, and it was a tight game in the end, and he kind of pulled him through. So Bargnani wasn't that bad, but it just felt good seeing the new center beat the old center kind of deal.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird thinking of Bargs as an old center. Like almost anybody would look good compared to him. Like I don't even want to shit on the guy. Like Bismack Biyombo is going to look good compared to Andrea Bargnani.
Yeah.
So
Andrea Bargnani is going to be a part of this podcast because today we're going to actually preview the Eastern Conference. And we're going to go through all the 15 teams in the East, rank them, and you'll find out where the Raptors fit in that pecking order. We did a similar podcast last year, Andrew, myself, and you, and we were pretty close because I was looking at those numbers, and we were basically bang on every front except Atlanta. I think nobody saw Atlanta do as well as they did last year. So other than Atlanta, where we were off by like 3 or 4 seeds, we did okay. So here's hoping that this time around, Will, we're equally accurate.
I hope so, because I got the Raptors a little bit high.
And I got them a little bit lower. And we'll start the pod by going bottom up in this case. But before we start this reverse ranking, we got to make a few assumptions. I think we're assuming health, right? Like we got to assume that people are healthy throughout the course of the year, unless we specifically think that this guy is like due to break down. We're assuming good health.
I mean, I think I'm maybe a little bit more. I think I'm factoring mine in. I guess we'll find out in the podcast. But like, if a team has a lot of injury-prone players that have not played a full season in a long time, that's going to factor in. But I mean, yeah, you should assume the best. I'm not going to assume like Paul George breaks his leg again.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So the way we did this is so I did my own ranking in a Google spreadsheet somewhere, and then Will did his own ranking, and so we both have our own rankings. But then we averaged it out. And then that's what we're going to review. And as we go bottom up, we'll tell you what the average was, and then we'll compare to where Will and I thought the team would actually finish. Usually Andrew joins us in this exercise, but he couldn't make it because he's under the weather. And when he informed us that he was going to be sick, I kind of sent him the Michael Jordan Game 5 sick in Utah clip, hoping to motivate him, but it didn't do anything. He's got the flu, so he's down and out.
Yeah, the flu pod would not sound good, just quality-wise.
Well, we'll never know. We'll never know, I guess.
We'll never know.
It might have been the greatest podcast ever. or certainly the best of the summer, but we just will never know.
That's not saying a lot, man.
Hey now,
some of these podcasts during the summer have been quite rough.
What do you mean? Which one in particular are you talking about, Will?
Like the last 6. Like
Oh my god. Oh my god. Actually, this week I plan to write a few articles on the site. I know it's been a little quiet, but there really has been nothing going on, unless you want me to recap like Jonas's game and talk some, post an Instagram clip or some shit. It's just there's nothing going on, so I just spared the team, spare the viewers some bad articles, and then just focus on the podcast.
Yeah, look, preseason is coming up. We'll have things to write about.
Yeah. All right, so without further ado, we'll start at the bottom. So starting at number 15 in the Eastern Conference, we have the Philadelphia 76ers. Not a big surprise here. You had the Sixers. I did not. I actually had the Nets here. But first, let's talk about the Sixers. Why do you got them dead last year, Will?
Because, quite frankly, they still don't have, like, 5 real NBA players yet. Like, real quality NBA players. I'm not even talking, like, stars or even necessarily starters. I just don't think they have 5 quality rotation NBA players. Maybe 5, but like that's not nearly enough. I think they were great on defense last year. I think they were 11th, and just the scheme that they played kind of really suited the roster. But you throw Jahlil Okafor in there, now you got 2 bigs that you're all consistently playing with instead of sort of their like 1 big plus wings kind of combination. I don't know if their defense will stand up, and if their defense doesn't stand up, like their offense definitely won't stand up because their offense has been like the worst in the league by a mile in the last 2 seasons. So, yeah, 18 wins. And that's kind of being generous, I think, to be honest.
Yeah, so I had them second last. But before I get to my breakdown of these guys, man, I just feel sad for Carl Landry and Gerald Wallace. They're supposed to be. I
forgot that they were with this team.
They're supposed to be the vet presence on this team, right? The guys who bring along the young guys and show them the the life of the NBA and keep them on point. But, you got to be thinking these 2 guys are like, why the hell are we here and how do we get stuck? Like, how do we get out and go to an actual contending team? Because nobody would, in their right mind, in the stage these 2 guys are in their careers, would want to be in Philly. So the veteran presence that the Sixers brought them in for, they might not get it. What they might get is a couple of, deep down disgruntled players who other teams will look to poach soon enough. But leaving that aside, man, like their point guard spot. They got Isaiah Canaan, Pierre Jackson, Kendall Marshall, and Ish Smith. That's their point guard. And in a team this young, you got to have some leadership at the ball, like at the ball handling position. And they have none. They got nothing there. So they might have a couple of bigs, but who will give them the ball? Who will run the sets? It's just that's a huge unknown. And for me, the only thing that the Sixers should be doing is basically waiting on Joel Embiid and figuring out which of these 3 bigs they're going to flip for an actual decent wing, like a starting caliber shooting guard or a point guard. And obviously they gave up on the MCW experiment, but they got to replace him somehow. And I don't know when that's going to happen. They have the assets to do it, but I think without a good point guard, or without a good shooting guard, without a good ball handler or a quarterback, this team is just going to go basically rely on effort and hustle to win a few games. And to your point about they're the worst offensive team last season, second worst in 3-point shooting. To address the latter, they added Nick Stauskas. How much is he going to do?
He was not good last year.
But yeah, that's the thing. Like they acquired him with the whole mindset that a change of scenery will do him good. But I don't see it happening, man. I don't see anybody on that team inviting double teams. So guys like Nick Stauskas will not have the looks like he might think he gets.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Embiid, sorry, not Embiid, Okafor, like, maybe if he comes in and is dominant right away, but I mean, how good is he really going to be? Like, is he going to be better than, like, Al Jefferson was, like, closer to the start of his career? Because they kind of have similar profiles in terms of how they play. I mean, Al Jefferson wasn't carrying any team to any meaningful success.
And to be fair to them, this is another year where they're not really expecting any success. I think this is just a wait for Joel Embiid year, and they're firmly in the hashtag trust the process thing. So, I mean, no success is expected, and certainly no success will be provided here as well.
Yeah.
So that's the Sixers, man. But
that was an easy one.
It is. But there's some contention here because I do think there's a worse team in the league. But we'll get to that. We'll get to those next. The Nets came in at number 14. So the 76ers finished with an average of 19.5 wins, and the Nets finished with 27. You had them picking up 34 wins, but I only had them picking up 20 and finishing last in the conference. So let's start with you. Like, why do you have so much faith in a Jared Jack and Bojan Bogdanovic backcourt?
Well, I mean, like they're not that much worse than last year. They're slightly worse, I would say, but because they lost Darren, which isn't even a big loss, but their backup is now Shane Larkin and Jarrett Jack's gonna start. But yeah, they still won 38 games last year, and after they traded for Thaddeus Young last, they were 17 and 13 from the All-Star break onwards. So, I mean, it's only 30 games, but there's enough veteran players there that if Brooke Lopez and Thaddeus Young stay healthy, that's something just to build around. Brooke Lopez can single-handedly win you a couple games. We've seen that happen against our Raptors a couple times last year. And they have, I guess, enough veteran guys. They don't have any incentive to tank because I don't think they have the draft pick. So they're going to be trying to go for it. And if they can make a midseason trade, I think they will try to upgrade their roster. I don't know. Intentions matter in this thing. I mean, 34 wins is still not a lot. I just don't think they're the worst team in the league, like you do.
Yeah, I think they're gonna ship Joe Johnson because it just makes no like they're trying to do a rebuild, but they can't really do it because
they have no draft picks.
They have no draft picks, and they got Joe Johnson's contract there. It's just the ultimate example of poor management. The Nets are where you really don't want to be. Not great assets and no draft picks, and no idea how to get out of this hole they're in. But they have to ship Joe Johnson at some point and get some draft picks for him because he's making 24.9 next season in his final year.
No one's giving up draft picks to get Joe Johnson, though.
At this point, the Nets will settle for like a 29th pick, man. I think come trade deadline, maybe you find a team, a taker for him. He is a clutch playmaker, so the only thing they can do is hope to trade him for a draft pick. I'm not saying they're going to get much, but he is their really only asset. And now you're going to have Lopez and Andrea Bargnani at the 4, I guess? Is that what the plan here is?
Well, I mean, Andrea will probably come off the bench, play backup.
Yeah,
but he'll probably start a fair number of games too. Because how many games can you realistically expect Brooke Lopez to play? He's had healthy seasons before, but he's a massive dude with foot problems. That's never a good combination. So if Brooke misses any time, then Bargnani becomes the starting center with Jared Jack at point guard. So
I think in an improved Eastern Conference, these teams will get run over. Like in the past, you might have encountered Philadelphia like 4 times and get 4 wins there, or encountered a weak Boston team or a weak New York team and rack up some wins there. I think this season is going to be a lot tougher. And teams like these who have basically no depth, there's no depth here. If Jared Jack is your starting point guard, you don't really have much depth. And Thad Young is a perennial backup, really, when you think about it. That's what his position should be in the league. He's starting. Other than Brooke Lopez, really and Joe Johnson, who's going to get shipped, they don't really have any starting caliber players. Like, name me one starting caliber player they have other than Brooke Lopez and Joe Johnson.
I mean, Thaddeus, I guess, would do. He's not going to be the starting player on a good team, on a very good team, but I think he's okay as a forward. But yeah, I don't know. I'm stretching it there. Yeah, it's not like they brought in anyone this season. Bogdanovic is okay. That's something. He's somewhat young. I think he's like 25. So yeah, seriously, Bogdanovic might be the Nets' best asset if you just factor in contract and future value and everything. It's a very sad franchise with very few assets.
So the Nets finish number 14th here. I disagree. I think they're going to be horrible, and I see them being the worst team in the East. They're one injury away from basically being the worst team in the league, in my opinion.
See, the thing is, the team actually doesn't have any incentive to be that bad. They don't have any pressure to tank.
I don't think so.
Unless you actually really, really try, or your whole team is ransacked with injuries, which is quite possible for the Nets. All it takes is for Brooke Lopez's foot to act up. Then yeah, it's going to be very hard for any team to be worse than the Sixers, who are trying their very best to be terrible.
Mm. All right, so that's the Nets coming in at number 14, and then we're going to move up a notch and come to the Orlando Magic, who we have ranked as the 13th best team in the Eastern Conference, or third worst is the better way to put it. 28.5 wins they average out at. I had the Magic at 30 wins. Will had them at second worst team of the East at 27. Will, let's start with you again. Magic. You're kind of down on them.
I just think like with all these teams that are sort of have been rebuilding for a couple years, the assumption is always like, oh, like all these players are going to develop and they're going to take the next step, and maybe all that happens to coincides together, and maybe the Magic make a playoff run, which is again, it's possible. They do have a lot of very talented players that could make a jump, but I don't really think that this team is going to be very good at all. Like they're relying on some very very young players to play for a hard nosed defensive coach in Scott Brooks. Sorry, not Scott Brooks, Scott Skiles. Who, to his credit, will be definitely an upgrade over Jack Vaughn, who was just terrible. But when you have like these hard nosed defensive coaches, I think they're going to play the veteran guys over some of the young guys, which is going to clash with ownership because the ownership clearly wants the young guys to pan out. Otherwise, ownership is screwed up in a significant way. The end, the basically even if their defense improves marginally, I just don't think you can build a quality offense right now, especially when you have a point guard that can't really shoot, and then you have Nick Vucevic who isn't a great 3-point shooter either. It's going to be difficult for them to patch together a good offense, and I don't think they made that many upgrades this offseason. Bringing in Hazonia is nice. I like Hazonia. He's a talented guy, but I don't know. I don't really trust a lot of rookies to produce immediately, and I don't think Hazonia will be a productive player immediately.
Yeah, I have them at 30 wins because like they've been bad, they've been terrible, but they've been terrible with more or less the same guys. And Vucevic, Payton, Tobias Harris, Oladipo, who I think is actually, I think he's going to be a top, maybe not the top tier, but a second tier player in this league at some point. Like I do rate him quite high.
Yeah, he's good.
So I think just those guys, another year playing together under a good coach, I can see that equating to 5 more wins this season. It's as simple as that. I don't think. I think Scott Skiles is a very underrated coach. He values ball movement. He runs his offense through his point guards. He's got a good point guard there. I think he's got a good backcourt there. And I think Peyton's going to be a really good defensive player. And I think at some point you'll see him being, all things go well for him. I think he might be one of those point guards, like a shutdown type point guard, if he actually develops that way. So I'm kind of high on the Magic. Channing Frye's still there. So under Scott Skiles, who used to be a pretty good point guard. He used to love, making the assists. I think that's what his coaching philosophy is too. I think he can get these guys to function as a unit. And in today's NBA, where ball movement and 3-point shooting is at kind of a premium, I think these guys will do well. And I think 30 wins isn't a stretch for them.
Yeah, I mean it's very likely. Look, all it really takes is for 2 of their players to take one more significant step, and if that happens, then we're probably talking maybe closer to 40 wins. But as of right now, I can't necessarily just assume that for any other guys. I think Peyton is a big hole on this team just because he can't really. I don't really think he can lead this offense to something better than like even league average. And I don't see enough defensive potential on this team that even someone like Scott Skiles, who carries a really good defensive reputation, that even he can patch back together. And plus, they lost a player that was pretty good for them last year in Kyle O'Quinn. So.
And remember Shabazz Napier, the hype around him during draft time? Like they got him.
I totally forgot that they got him.
Yeah, they got him. He was a guy that the Raptor fans wanted drafted there.
LeBron wanted him, remember?
Yeah, LeBron wanted him in Miami.
And then the Heat took him, and then LeBron didn't come back.
Yeah. So that was number 13, the Magic. Up next, going up the ladder, we got at number 12, the Pacers, coming in with the 30 wins here. The Pacers, man, who knows what to make of them this year. Will, you had them, I think we both had them at the exact same spot, actually, number 13. Go first. Pacers, what do you think? Monta Ellis is enough to make them relevant again?
Well, I think a lot of people think that Paul George's return is going to coincide with this team bouncing back. And to be fair, even without Paul George last year, they kind of scrapped their way close to a playoff spot, which is pretty impressive. But it's the problem with this team is that they have absolutely no bigs, and they built their identity on defense in years past. But I can't even see the outline of a solid defense with this team. And I guess that starts with the bigs. I know we're all going small ball, but shifting Paul George to power forward, that's going to take some time. It's going to take a lot of getting used to because Paul George only ever played as a wing. Like we're talking like he came in the league as a shooting guard and then played small forward, but basically played the same position he always did. So it's going to be a huge transition for him, both offensively and defensively. And they just have a ton of high usage guards between Stuckey and George is a high usage guard, Monte Ellis, and then their best ball handler and probably their only distributor is George Hill. But you bring in all these extra guys, I don't know necessarily that that's going to be a good thing for their offense because George Hill was actually very effective in running their offense last year. And if you take other people to hold on to the ball and detract from what he's doing, it's tough. But ultimately, it comes down to the fact that they have no bigs, and this is going to be a very interesting season for the Pacers.
Yeah, so I think they're trying to make Paul George play the old Rashard Lewis type role, perimeter wing, power forward, that kind of deal. But I think that's a role more suited for a role player, not necessarily your star player. I don't know how that's going to work out. I don't know if there's any team out there that has tried to move their star player into the stretch four position and had great success.
Like Melo is the example. Like Melo wasn't super happy with it, and he used to complain about it in New York all the time, even though he was great at it. And this offseason, like George has, said like, oh yeah, I've been told I'll play like some minutes there, sure, occasionally depending on matchup.
Yeah.
And then they asked Larry Bird about it. Larry Bird's like, no, you're the power forward, and I decide how my team's gonna play.
Yeah, so they probably have Jordan Hill like on that team playing center, in a small ball setup, and I don't think Jan Mahinmi is going to get too many minutes here, but who knows? That's the thing, you don't know how they're going to pan out, how they're going to get structured, like what their offensive philosophy will be. Like, are they really going to be run and gun with like George Hill there? There's no great rebounders on this team, so Jordan Hill's a good rebounder, but that's about it, really. Then you got Lavoy Allen after him. So you don't really know what their setup will be or what their offensive approach will be, other than that Paul George will play the four. So I really don't know how to analyze this team until I actually see a few games and see what they're up to.
Yeah. I think they're going to rely very heavily on Miles Turner, who is a rookie, but the guy's like 19. Like, when's the last time a 19-year-old big came in and like actually held down the starting spot and was great for a team that was successful? Like Tim Duncan. Tim Duncan came in the league when he was like 22. So 19-year-old.
They do have C.J. Miles, but again, who knows what his role is? Depending on how they want to play Monta. Is Monta going to be like an off guard? Because Monta is only effective when he actually has a ball in his hand. He's not a guy who can just play off. And just kind of, get a touch every third possession or something like that. But when you have high usage guards like George Hill and Stuckey on the team, a guy like Monta, is he going to get starved? I don't know. To me, Monta's always been a guy that needs to be bringing the ball up the court to set his shot up effectively. And here, he's not really going to be able to do that with George Hill. So a lot of questions, not many answers with the Pacers.
Yeah, and it's also going to be harder for them to play pick and roll and stuff when you don't really have a big that's like a threat to score when to like actually roll. So you can just trap harder on the perimeter and stuff. It's just a very strange team because they actually have no starting quality bigs.
Yeah, unless they use Paul George as that big man in the pick and roll. But then like who's spreading your court? Again, it's these kind of questions that pop up when you talk about the Pacers, and really you have no idea how it's going to work. So done with the Pacers?
Yeah.
I think
not
that was
that interesting
too
of a team.
Yeah, they're not. They're kind of boring, man. Very boring. So up next, at number 11, we got the Celtics coming in at 30, missing the playoffs. A lot of teams picking the Celtics to a lot of articles out there picking the Celtics to kind of make the postseason, but we have them finishing 11th in the conference, despite I think you can both agree that they improved and they made the playoffs last season, but at the same time we're kicking them out of the playoffs. So what's the rationale behind that, Will?
Okay, so their big success came after the All-Star break. I guess their big success came after they traded Rondo. But the thing is, they kind of built their team with like a mediocre offense. They ranked 16th after the All-Star break, and they had a 9th ranked defense, which I find highly suspect. Not that suspect that they did it. That's what the facts state, but I don't really look at this team and think, wow, this is a dominant defensive team or even a top 10 defensive team. They certainly have some gritty defensive wing players, but who's going to protect the rim for them? Is it going to be Amir Johnson? Is he going to fully stay healthy after his ankles? I don't know, but if it's not Amir Johnson, then it's definitely none of the other bigs on the roster. Maybe Tyler Zeller, but he kind of cramps the way they want to play. It's just they have I don't know, 6 power forwards and a lot of guards, but like very few wings. It's tricky. There's a lot of pieces to play with, but the biggest thing with the Celtics is that I think that their best roster is something different than what is in the best interest of their youth and development going forward. So if they want to play the young guys and try to develop them, then they're going to win less than if they just play the veterans who they're not really invested in, like David Lee and Amir Johnson. So that's a big problem for them. And then finally, just shooting. I don't think they have enough shooting. They had no 3-point shooters on the roster that shot better than 35% from the floor last season, except for Jonas Drebko, who shot 40% in 64 attempts. So that's a very small sample size. They don't really have a credible shooter on the outside. So I don't know. It's an interesting team. I mean, it's certainly a team that where you can coach it up and maybe make it win 40 games, but I don't think it's going to be that successful.
It's a team that's lacking a star right now, and you know that Danny Ainge loves to have a star on his team. Like he's all about that, and I think at some point he's going to have to flip some of these assets to get a real franchise player on that, because right now they don't really have it. Even if you project out some of their good players like Marcus Smart or where he ends up, or Bradley or Jay Crowder or any of these guys, Isaiah Thomas, they're not going to be star players in the league. They might be good players, maybe even very good players, but nothing like at the Melo or any of that level. You just don't see anybody here projecting to that. And I think you kind of need that if you're rebuilding, and they don't have that right now. They got a lot of good players, but I just don't think they have enough just star power actually to make a real dent of anything. And at some point, I think they're going to make a move for that. Unlike you, I'm not surprised that they're good defensively. And I think they'll continue to be good defensively because they have a really good coach. And they got 2 guys in Avery Bradley and Crowder who are just really, really good defenders.
Smart's pretty good too.
Exactly. And so I'm not surprised. If you have good wing defenders, you're going to prevent penetration, and that's going to make your defense look good. Yeah, they have weak rim protection with David Lee and Kelly Olynyk, but I think you can kind of counterweight that with some good perimeter defense, and they've done that. So I'm not surprised there. Amir Johnson, I think he's there. You know, he's like a veteran presence when things go tough. He's kind of there in the locker room to help them out a little bit. I think that's going to be his role more than anything. The one thing that they did add is David Lee and Amir Johnson, who can both play pick and roll. So they've added that dimension to their offense. Last year they didn't really have that. And now they got a guy who can run the pick and roll in Thomas, and 2 guys who can potentially finish on there. So that'll give them – they struggled on offense last year. And I think their moves retained their defensive identity while adding some offense. Yeah. Which is unlike the Bucks or somebody who added like Gravis Vasquez and just killed their defense completely. So I think I like Boston's moves here. They're not going to be great, but they're going to continue to be good. And at some point you'll see a trade for somebody big, but by putting these assets and their freaking 500 draft picks together, and you'll see Boston get a star in the next year or so.
Yeah, well, it's hard to see that though. Like, which star is going to be on the market? Like, if the Kings implode again, will they trade Cousins? I don't think so.
I mean, that's a great example because they tried to get Cousins.
No.
You know,
George Karl, the head coach, apparently shopped Cousins around, but I mean that wasn't their GM doing it, right? And
what I'm saying, Ainge was out there hunting for a superstar.
Of course, he definitely is. And you look at this roster; it's got a giant for sale sign on it. I mean, if they don't land a star, they'll probably trade Amir Johnson midseason. I don't know if they eat some of David Lee's contract. I think they could trade Lee to another team. But I mean, Lee's contract's so big that a contender is not going to have $15 million just waiting around to trade for David Lee. Yeah, until they make that trade for a star, they're kind of like the Houston Rockets in like the late, mid 2000s.
So that's the Celtics coming in at number 11. And up next, we got a bit of a disagreement here between Will and myself. The Knicks come in averaging at the 10th place in the Eastern Conference with about 37.5 wins. I had them actually making the playoffs, but Will had them finishing 11th. So, Will, Knicks, you're not buying the whole Carmelo's resurgence along with Aflalo coming on and their draft picks and something good happening in New York?
I mean, I think they're going to be better than last year. I think 34 wins, so I have them for like twice the number of wins they had last year. But yeah, Melo's going to be healthy. So that's going to be good for, probably at least 25 wins. Just if he was healthy for the whole season, you have Melo on your team, you probably have at least 25 wins, regardless of who you have around him. And you got guys like Jose Calderon coming back. I don't know if he'll stay healthy. He probably won't. It's Calderon, but I mean that's also an improvement. It's just they don't have any like interior defense aside from Robin Lopez, who is going to be strained a lot by playing with Melo and whoever plays four. If it's Porzingis, he's definitely going to struggle on defense. But at least they've added enough NBA players that I could see them winning 41 games, but I think a lot of things have to click together. There's not enough depth on this team. It's like name the backups to like Aflalo and Melo.
Well, it's Vujacic for
it's a tough exercise,
and it's your man Langston Galloway backing up Jose Calderon. So I have a feeling about the Knicks. I just think I like their Derek Williams acquisition. I think he adds a bit of consistency at the power forward. I think
you can't
honestly,
say Derek Williams with consistency in the same sentence.
I don't mind Derek. I think that was a good acquisition. I think he's going to be okay in I'm not saying he's been great in Sacramento, man. I just think that it's a decent pickup at a low cost, and I think he'll pan out for them. I just have a feeling. And I think Aflalo was a good acquisition. I think Melo finally has some real scoring help in the backcourt, which he hasn't had in quite some time. So you'll see less of Carmelo Anthony just trying to take over games or jacking up shots, because he actually has some help in Aflalo. And this is what I was talking about, assuming health. If they both stay healthy, I can see the Knicks making a bit of a run. And Robin Lopez, he improves their defense, as you said. Kyle Quinn was a nice little pickup.
Yep.
Porzingis is going to be a good offensive player, I think, for them. Defensively, he's going to struggle, but I think he's going to be valuable, at least off the bench. So they have some pieces there that make them better. I just think Aflalo, Lopez, Kyle Quinn, these are three really good acquisitions, and Derek Williams, I think, is an average acquisition, but I think he'll outperform what he's showed so far in his career, and I think the Knicks have something there.
Yeah, I mean, look, last year they spent like half the season with 3 10-day contract guys, basically, between Langston Galloway, Lou Amundsen, and Lance Thomas, and Bargnani started a lot of games for them. Like, this team will be better. I don't think they're that much better. It's just a lack of depth, but yeah, I mean, if they do put it all together and all the veterans stay healthy, which is not, a given with this team, then yeah, 41 wins is not unreasonable. I don't know. I think I'm factoring a little bit of injury and also a lack of depth.
Yeah, they were the 28th ranked defensive team last year. They're going to be better than that. I think just taking Bargnani out of the equation just improves.
You're putting Jose Calderon back in the equation.
He was in the equation last year too.
Like for 27 games before he had an Achilles injury.
I hear you. Yeah. But still, you get rid of Bargnani, who's basically a sieve. You're gonna get an increase there. Robin Lopez is gonna help. I think that's gonna be big.
For sure, yeah.
I think if they finish, say, 17th, 18th in defense, they have enough offense to make a dent in the East.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's the Knicks, and so
that's bad for our draft pick, by the way.
Yes, it is, because the
Raptors our draft pick looks like it's gonna be like 10th.
Yeah.
But
it's gonna be the worst of the Knicks or the Nuggets, I believe, right?
The Nuggets are gonna be horrible.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be the Knicks pick.
Yeah. So that's one storyline to watch all season. You gotta root against the Knicks, man.
I think that should be a new widget on the site, actually.
Yeah. That's not a bad idea, man. That's not a bad idea. I'm on it, Will.
All right.
So up next, we got number 9. The Knicks came in number 10. Number 9 goes to the Charlotte Hornets at 38.5 wins. Where did you have these guys, man? This is an interesting team.
I had them for 40.
You had
40 wins, which was enough to make the playoffs.
Yeah, and I had them well out of the playoffs at number 11. So what's the rationale here? You really think Nick Batum in his contract here is going to give a shit?
Yeah, why not? Look, I don't know if you've followed the words of Steve Clifford recently, but he's talking about how his team's going to play, and he's going to envision a Hedo Turkoglu type role for Nick Batum, which is going to be interesting. Steve Clifford was one of the main assistants in Orlando under Stan Van Gundy. So hopefully he means Hedo Turkoglu type role, as in like that one contract year Hedo had, instead of the year after where Hedo just said ball, ate pizza, and then did nothing. which is just not the kind of player Batum is. I think Batum is going to be exactly what this team needs, and if they could just have some better luck with injuries and stuff, there's enough quality facilitators and playmakers on this team now, which was always their big problem, is that they just didn't have enough of that, and they were just like, all right, it's 5 seconds left on the shot clock, let's give it to Al Jefferson in the post for a hook shot. If they can just improve their offense to something better than league average, I think Steve Clifford's an excellent defensive coach, and I think he'll suss out a top 12 defense out of this team. And if they can just have an offense that's not just completely unwatchable, I think that this team should be able to make the playoffs.
I think it's the franchise probably deep down already knows that Nick Batum isn't going to be staying there.
Of course.
So I don't know how much they're willing to invest in Nick Batum running the point. I think what they're really saying there is we don't really trust Kemba Walker to run the offense for 38 minutes a game because the guy averages like 5 and change in assists, which is not enough given how much he dominates the ball.
He also shoots the ball a lot and can't really shoot well.
Yeah, so they're saying Nick Batum will come in and basically play the point forward. And that doesn't always work out well. It just hasn't worked out well. And I don't see it happening here. Nick Batum is great off the ball when he catches the ball after somebody else has penetrated. Then he can go left, he can go right, he can finish either way. He's effective in those situations. You give him the ball and go, okay, Nick, you create for freaking Jeremy Lamb. And suddenly you're in a position where he doesn't have enough talent around him to knock those open shots down. Like, MKG's a good defensive player, but he's not a scorer. So I don't know what you expect Batum to do, facilitate and provide. No, he's a scorer who should be put in positions to score, not be the one creating for others. Their real problem is good point guard play, and as much as I love Kemba Walker, they got to address that at some point. So for me. And also injury here. Jefferson missed 17 games last year. Walker missed 20.
Whoa, apparently Al Jefferson lost 25 pounds this offseason, but he stopped eating fried chicken. So he's going to be healthy now.
One of his things is that he's all about the girth.
I like how you just breeze right past that. Come on. Al can stay healthy maybe. He's never really done it in his career, but...
Yeah, let's see how it goes. They both missed a chunk of games. They're going to get Jeremy Lamb a lot of minutes, who was okay. Like, there's a stat out there, like, every time Lamb played, like, more than 20 minutes a game, he averaged 11 points in OKC or something like that. It's one of those
That's
stats
because he only played when he was
in
hot.
Garbage time, and also in garbage time.
Yeah, there's an attribution error there.
Yeah, so that's their kind of rationale in getting Lamb out. He's going to get his run. They're going to hope he pans out. But overall, I just don't see this team putting out a good, consistent, professional basketball lineup out there every night. I just don't see it happening, man. It's going to be just a mishmash of like Kemba Walker, Batum experiments, Jeremy Lamb jacking up shots, and just Al Jefferson missing games while looking like a skinny twig. So not happening for me, man.
All right. Well, I've got faith in my boy Batum. But hey, listen, if Batum has a down year, like you said, because his team is worse, which he is coming from a much better team in the Portland Trailblazers, or what used to be the Portland Trailblazers.
Oh, I know.
Batum has a down year. Maybe he signs with the Raptors.
I know what's going on here, Will.
Yeah.
I know what's going on here. It's a Jeremy Lin thing, isn't it?
I love my boy Jeremy Lin. I want the Raptors to sign him.
Eh? You don't even mention that one, but that's the real reason you want them in there.
Look, this is the point in Jeremy Lin's career. Like, he tried going into a Hornets facility, and the security guy didn't even believe he was an NBA player. Like, he was like, "Who are you?" And this is like 3 years ago. It was Linsanity. This guy was like one of the most influential people in the world, I think, as ranked by Time. So So.
All right, so that's that. They also have Spencer Hawes and Marvin Williams. There's a couple of nice players, but I think their starting unit is too dysfunctional, and I think they're going to implode.
Yeah, I think they have enough NBA talent. They'll win 40 games.
All right.
Don't worry.
All right.
Don't worry.
All right. So we've reached the playoff point. So we'll take a quick break and come back with the playoff teams. Welcome back to part 2 of Raptors Weekly. Season's almost here, guys. It's almost here. It's 21st today. We got 9 more days, media day, blah, blah, blah. It's all about to start, Will. It's all about to start.
It's all happening, kind of.
Yeah. After it starts, we're going to wait for like a month before it really starts. But that month is pretty interesting.
Look, we're going to watch Bruno play in preseason. We're going to, anoint him as Kevin Durant after he hits like 2 3-pointers, and if he hits less than 2 3-pointers, we'll say he's a bust. You never know.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a fun time.
What's our preseason schedule look like? I don't know. I haven't. It's on the site somewhere, but I just cannot be bothered to even look.
Yeah, sure. They're gonna play Maccabi Tel Aviv again. I feel like they always play them.
Yeah.
And then probably some games against the Kings, the Celtics.
Yeah.
I think I'm just recounting last year's
Yeah.
preseason schedule, but
Probably not much different. But I know that at some point we all will complain how it's too long.
it is too long. They should just cut that down and then reduce back-to-backs.
All right, so let's get back to our playoff ranking, and we're going to start with number 8, the 8th seed in the Eastern Conference. Detroit Pistons coming in with 41 wins. There's some disagreement here. I had the Pistons finishing a little higher, and Will had them finishing out of the playoffs. So Will, no love for the Pistons.
I want to say no love. I wanted to put the Hornets in at number 8 instead of the Pistons, so I gave them one less win. I don't know. I like this Pistons squad. You know, like Sam Van Gundy has finally made himself a worse version of the Orlando Magic, but like the type of pieces are all in place. The guys that he got this offseason, Marcus Morris, Ersan Ilyasova, they can both play stretch 4, which is exactly what Sam Van Gundy wants out of them. And you know that it's okay if they play stretch 4 because they'll have a guy like Drummond who was very similar to Dwight Howard was, a decade ago, where he can just gobble up all the rebounds, and then he's fast enough and athletic enough to block the shots, if they allow penetration and stuff. So, I don't know. This is a Stan Van Gundy team, and I trust Stan Van Gundy's abilities as a coach to make something out of this team. Why I have them for 39 wins and 1 win out of the playoffs at 9th, I can't fully explain, but I'm encouraged by the fact that they had a horrible start last season with Josh Smith, right? So they started 5-23, and then after that they were 27-27 for the rest of the season. So it looks like this team is going to be a 500 team, and if Drummond takes the leap, then I think this team is almost absolutely a playoff team.
Yeah, I think they've done some, including the Josh Smith move. They've done some really good. They've taken out a lot of dead weight, bad defensive players. Greg Monroe's exit was great. I think they got, as you mentioned, Marcus Morris and Ilyasova. It gives them that stretch 4. And the one thing to note here is that SVG loves to run his offense through his point guards. So I can see Reggie Jackson easily averaging, like 10, 11 assists next season, just because he'll have the ball that much, and he has enough weapons around him with Caldwell Pope, with Morris, with Ilyasova. Baines is another guy that I think you shouldn't discount. Like he's
good. Baines is good.
He's a decent player who might surprise you. And Steve Blake was a nice pickup from a veteran perspective. And if Brandon Jennings comes back healthy, they got depth at point guard, and not just depth, they have interchangeability at the 1 and 2. So I'm excited about the Pistons. Their coach excites me. I think the players they acquired look like they're going to be good fits. I think Andre Drummond, in addition to being a pretty good offensive player, is going to be an elite defensive player in this league at some point. And under Stan Van Gundy, he's the right guy to kind of make that happen. So I have high hopes for the Pistons, and I think they will make the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to get the Hornets in the playoffs, so
it's Jeremy
Detroit
Lin
down a peg, but I agree with almost everything you're saying about the Pistons.
Yeah. So that's number 8. Moving up, are the Bucks 7th here. The Bucks came in with 41.5 wins. Disagreement here as well. I had them out of the playoffs, and you had them in. And in the break, you're like, I gotta explain myself on this one, eh?
Well, yeah, you got it, because the internet loves the Bucks. You don't understand. Giannis Antetokounmpo is going to be a combination of Kevin Durant plus Kevin Garnett plus Anthony Davis. So
yeah, I don't.
How could you deny the blogosphere of a playoff spot for the Bucks?
There's a Bucks blog. I don't know which one that is. They're actually debating a 50-win season for the Bucks. This is an actual conversation their site is having. Like, what do the Bucks have to do to crack the 50-win mark? A lot is the answer to my question. Because after the All-Star break, they were 11-18. That's what they were, 11-18. So they were not a good team after the All-Star break, and it kind of showed in the playoffs as well. And then last year they were 3rd in defense and 26th on offense. Their defense, their long, lengthy guys, is what kind of kept them in games and made them a threat. And what did they do? They added Greg Monroe and Vasquez, who they're actually thinking of starting ahead of MCW because they don't like MCW at all. So they're actually contemplating starting Vasquez. You get those two guys in the lineup, and immediately your third-ranked defense, which held you last year, is going down the drain. Immediately. I don't care who you are. With those two guys there, you're not going to be a good defensive team. That's my main thing. And second, they're only as good as Jabari Parker and Giannis. That's it. That's their. Those are the two guys that will take them as far as they can go. And Jabari Parker is a rookie. So you're telling me a rookie and Giannis and a bunch of essentially, average to slightly above average players are going to propel you into the playoffs? I don't see it. Maybe last year's East was different, but this year I don't see it. I think they took a huge step back defensively, and they're going to pay the price for it. And they didn't improve as much offensively. And Raptor fans, like you guys saw Grievous Vasquez last year, that's the guy they're relying on in the backcourt to take them a step forward. It's not going to happen.
All right, I just want to preface this by saying they have a lot of high, upside, talented guys, and they do have a good defense. I think that even after adding some defensive problems like Vasquez and Monroe, I still think that they can still manage a top 10 defense. So I don't know. 50 wins is definitely optimistic, but I don't think it's totally impossible. It's just my biggest problem with the Bucks is that they shipped out and some of their more important veteran role players, right? They lost Zaza, they lost Dudley, they lost Ersan, and look, on paper those three guys aren't that valuable, but to last season's Bucks team, they were huge pieces of that team. And the thing with the Bucks is that most of the wins, like you said, came before the All-Star break, which is when they traded Brandon Knight. Brandon Knight was really good for this team. He carried their offense on many nights, and once he left, it was kind of unwatchable, which is not that entirely surprising when you have MCW who can't shoot at all. So and putting in Vasquez, Vasquez, I guess on paper, if they can weather his defensive mishaps, then yeah, Vasquez is a good point guard for the system because he's big, Jason Kidd wants all his point guards to be basically himself, and he can actually shoot a three, and he's a good passer. Greg Monroe is he's a talented offensive player, but I just think that their defense will take a step back with all these changes, losing all these veteran guys, and while they still have a lot of talent on the roster, I don't think they are going to make this huge 50-win leap. So I have them for 43 wins and 70. So,
what do you think Giannis's potential is in this league?
It's hard to say because I'm still not even entirely sure if he's going to be
what's his NBA projection?
Player.
What's his NBA projection?
Sean Marion with a better jump shot, who could shoot. Who actually no?
Isn't that
Sean Marion couldn't drive, right? And Giannis is actually a pretty good driver. He looks awkward as hell doing it, but I think he's pretty effective in driving.
Nick Batum-ish?
Yeah, I guess. But the thing with Giannis is I'm still not sure what they envision for him. Is he going to be a front court player that plays stretch four? Or is he going to be a ball handler kind of guy who plays from the wing? I'm still not entirely sure. So Giannis is a very unique player, and I think he's pretty effective now. And if his jump shot, apparently it's looked better playing with Greece this summer at Eurobasket. So I don't know, but if that 3-point shot has actually improved, then Giannis is a very good player, I think, or he's a good player now, and he's going to turn into a very good player.
I think he's a tremendous defensive player. I think he's still learning. He's only in his third year going.
He's so long, that it makes up for a lot of his bad positioning or occasional drive-bys and stuff.
Yeah. So, when we talk about Bruno Caboclo projections, I'm surprised the one guy that doesn't get mentioned at all is Giannis.
No. Giannis gets linked to Bruno all the time.
Oh, does he? Okay.
It's just in terms of type of player, because I guess they're kind of similar. They both came in the league as raw and just has ridiculously long arms.
Yeah, because Bruno, we kind of jump straight to Kevin Durant. We kind of skip anybody in between. But
that's Grant Fischel's fault.
I think Giannis might be a good projection for in the best case. So, hey, we differ here. I just don't think the Bucks. I think the Bucks kind of surprised themselves by being good last year, and they still kind of haven't figured out how they were that good last year.
It was defense, but I think they're assuming too much of their defense is just going to carry over
It's
because
not.
they added a lot of weaker defenders, like weak defenders. Like Graves Vasquez is a very weak defender.
And I thought that second half of the season teams kind of figured out that you just got to move the ball. Like they'll pressure you, but if you're able to compose yourself, not turn the ball over, and just move the ball, they have
That's
very
very hard though
they had they,
against this defense. Like they were ranked second in defense
that,
in after the All Star break.
I hear you. What I'm saying is that it's just what worked last year isn't going to work again this year. Teams game plan. They have assistant coaches, they have scouting, and they look at the box and they see what they do. And next year there's going to be a plan. Teams are going to have an extra guy in the backcourt just to relieve the pressure and move the ball around. Those things are going to happen, and it's not going to be. Jonas isn't going to get like 3 steals a game,
Yeah,
by just pressuring the point guard. It's just not going to happen. So I think the media around the Bucks is extremely optimistic, and I
of course.
don't see
Yeah.
it. All right, so that was number 7, the Bucks. Moving up the ladder, it's number 6. The Miami Heat come in with 47 wins. Disagreements here as well. I'm really hot on the Heat.
No. We both have them for 47.
Oh, we have them, yeah, but you have them like 6th, and I have them a little bit higher, but fine, it doesn't matter. The Heat, go Will. What do you like about the Heat?
I just on paper, there's a ton of talent on this team. Like we're talking about a starting 5 of Goran Dragic, Dwayne Wade, Luol Deng, Chris Bosh, and Hassan Whiteside. Now, the biggest things with this team are two things. One, injuries. There's a lot of injury-prone players on this team. Dwayne Wade, I don't think you can expect him to play a full 82-game season anymore. Chris Bosh, I'm not entirely sure of either. Obviously, last season he was healthy, and then he had that blood clot thing, so he looks to be fully recovered from that, thank goodness. But I don't know if you can expect a fully healthy season from Bosh. Hassan Whiteside, we still haven't seen him play a full season yet. Goran Dragic, he also gets into injury trouble as well. And the second thing is defense. Like, is this team going to be good defensively? Because last season, what we saw to Bosh was that he was no longer an elite defensive player because he had to do so much more on the offensive end. So I don't know if he's necessarily going to go back to that role. And Hassan Whiteside last season was a very good defensive player, or at least a very effective defensive player. But I don't know how much we can trust out of Hassan Whiteside at this point. If he's still Hassan Whiteside from last season and he does that for a full 82-game schedule, then yeah, this team is going to be scary. But it's just injuries and defense for me, because otherwise they have tons of talent.
You look at 4 out of their 5 positions in Dragic, Wade, Luol Deng, and Chris Bosh. I mean, you could get those 4 guys and start on most NBA teams, not just in the East. They could start on most Western Conference teams. And Hassan Whiteside is a bit of an X factor, and if he comes back the same as last year, watch out. But what Hassan Whiteside also gives them is that it doesn't force Chris Bosh to play center all the time. So now they can kind of switch him around with McRoberts, assuming he's healthy, and Bosh can play the 4 a little bit more. They have a lot of options in how to use McRoberts and Bosh if Whiteside is available. You look at their second tier, like Mario Chalmers, Gerald Green, Justice Winslow, McRoberts we talked about, Donis Haslem. Like they have, and James Ennis, who's coming from Australia. He had a good season last year. He's back.
Even Chris Anderson is fine if you play him 15 minutes. Like he's good defender.
So
even for a 38-year-old or whatever he is.
They got depth, man. And if this team stays healthy, they got the same coach there for a while, so he should have a fairly tuned offense at this point. If they click and stay injury free, I can see them getting home court in the East quite easily. But as you said, I think injury is the biggest thing here, because talent-wise, they got it going on. And I think this year you'll see Mario Chalmers. I think last year you had Mario Chalmers like coming in for Dwayne Wade a lot. I think this season his role is going to be more defined. He's going to be backing up Goran Dragic. I think he's more comfortable playing that position as well.
Mm-hmm. So they have Gerald Green, who's at least he's a microwave type of guy who can score you like 20 points in a game if he's hot.
And they got good defensive players like Gerald Green, James Ennis. They got athletic, wingy type players, and it's really and Luol Deng's there. So I would hate to face the Miami Heat in a playoff series if I'm the Raptors.
Yeah, look, Luol Deng is their worst starter. That's kind of crazy because Luol Deng is not that much worse than Damari Carroll.
Yeah. Right. And I don't follow the college game, as closely as I used to, but from what I've read and Draft Express and all that, Justice Winslow is supposed to be a pretty good player. So, if I'm any team walking into Miami, you're in for a game.
yeah, look, if they click and they stay healthy, like you said, this is going to be a 50-plus win team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the Heat at number 6. But hey, man, I have them at coming in at number 4. So moving up, we got number 5. This is the Washington Wizards. The Washington Wizards come up at 5th. I don't know how these rankings work, man, because I had the Wizards at number 3, and you had them at number 5, and they are at number 5 in our average of wins. So Wizards at number 5. Let's analyze Washington for a second here, man.
Okay. So I got him for 47 wins, which ties them for the Heat, but whatever. It's arbitrary tiebreaker that I just gave them. Yeah, though the biggest questions for me with the Wizards is the health of Bradley Beal. Can he play a full season? And also they still don't have a stretch 4. Like they could, I guess, get away with putting Jared Dudley at the 4, but it's just not fully in the prerogative of Randy Whitman to do the right thing with his club, it seems, and their GM to actually do the right thing with the club. So, yeah, I mean, the Wizards, I think if they maximize their talent, will definitely win more than 47 games. But given the current management structure, I think they're just going to top out and be very similar to last year's Wizards, just defensively solid and offensively frustrating. I think they lost some talent. I think they lost some talent this summer. Going from Paul Pierce to Jared Dudley is a downgrade. I'm not even just talking about playoff Paul Pierce. I'm just talking about regular season Paul Pierce is probably worse than better than regular season Jared Dudley. And I mean, I don't know who they had, like Kelly Oubre, Allen Anderson. Like those guys aren't really impact players on the wing. So I don't know. Maybe if Otto Porter breaks out, this team changes. But I think it's going to look very similar to last year's team.
Yeah, I think in a 7-8 man rotation, they're good. They're all right. I mean, again, if Beal stays healthy, Wall stays healthy, I think Gary Neal was a good add. Martell Webster he's going to come back healthy, hopefully. I think Jared Dudley, I like, good defensive player, good 3-point shooter. I think they needed that. Again, you miss Paul Pierce's veteran leadership, but I just think that this team really grew last season, and I think they kind of figured out how to play. And I think the lessons learned in that Raptors series win and their series against the Hawks, they're going to come out a little stronger this season. I think they're going to be a little hungry. And Randy Whitman, we make fun of him and all that, but the guy did do a decent job in the playoffs, man.
He did, yeah.
So I don't think he's as bad as a coach as we sometimes make him out to be. So I have high hopes for the Wizards. Otto Porter Jr. is my X factor for them. I think if he plays anywhere close to the way he did against the Raptors last season in the playoffs, the Wizards are going to be a decent team because that's their weak position right now. That small forward. Yep. And if Otto Porter Jr. can fill that in and Jared Dudley backs him up, I think they're going to be okay.
Yeah. Or if he develops enough that he's like defensively solid, like basically the way he played in the playoffs was like prime Tayshaun Prince, right? Yeah. And if you could put those two at him and Dudley at 3 and 4, and then go with Gortat at center, then that's a very good lineup that should be good defensively, or at least like passable defensively, and also very good offensively. So, I guess Otto Porter's the X factor, which is a weird thing to say.
Yeah, and the personnel they have allows them to play a lot of different types of offense. They have good pick and roll players, they have good post up players, they have good one-on-one players. So they have a lot of options in how they can set up, and not every team can say that about themselves. Like the Bucks can't do that, the Raptors can't do that, but the Wizards have talent pretty much at 4 out of the 5 starting positions, which allows them to do basically whatever they want on offense. And then from that, it's up to in discipline and health. And I think if they get those two sorted out, they're going to be a decent team.
Yeah.
So that was number 5. And now we're going to move on to the top 4, the home court in the Eastern Conference. And I have the Raptors. Actually, we had the Raptors averaging out at number 4. I actually had the Raptors down at number 6, and you had them at number 4. But in the wins average, they come in at number 4 with 47.5 wins. All right, man. The Raps. What do you think?
I mean, I might be a little bit of a homer with this one. I only have them for 49 wins, so it's not something like ridiculous crazy. I just think that this is going to be a more balanced team. And to your point about the Wizards last year, like the Raptors could only played one way last season, right? Which is sort of this like all-out offensive team, and it's just like, okay, we're going to hope that you don't score more than us today because our offense is pretty good. But we have definitely more two-way players now. We have definitely a huge upgrade on the wing, which is a huge hole for them last year. And if you just assume that DeMar is going to be healthy and Lowry are going to be healthy, which it seems like they will be. Yeah, 49 wins. I don't know. I don't think that's unrealistic for this Raptors team at all. I think DeMar Carroll's going to be very good for this team. He's kind of exactly the role player that they needed. And, if you just assume a little bit better from Jonas, such that he's not just like a, total defensive inflexibility, and if you, shift the defense to make it more palatable for JV to play, I don't know, man. 49 wins is not unrealistic for this team.
Yeah, I'm not. What I'm. We'll talk. We'll have a lot more podcasts about this throughout the season. But
about the Raptors on this Raptors podcast.
Yeah. And I just don't see a bench here.
You don't see a bench?
I don't see a bench here. I see Corey Joseph as the backup point guard, and then I see after that I see DeLon Wright, who's a rookie. I see Terrence Ross, who basically sucks.
Terrence Ross, he'll be fine.
Hang on, man. Hang on. Come on. Terrence Ross, fine. I mean, we shit on him on every single podcast. And
we do. Fine. Yeah. This is giving a minute that we shit on Terrence Ross.
Norman Powell. I don't have the soundbite ready. Norman Powell. And then you have James Johnson, who can't even freaking play.
He can play.
I mean,
he's effective when he plays.
But he doesn't even play. Casey doesn't play him.
He will
Bruno Caboclo, who's going to be in the D League. Louis Scola, who's 36. Again, he's a decent player. Ronald Roberts, Bismack Biyombo, and
Ronald Roberts is not really on the roster.
He's on a guaranteed deal now. So what is our bench? Like, what's our bench look like? Okay, what's our first sub, Will?
What's our first sub? Probably Corey Joseph for Kyle Lowry.
Okay, what's our second sub?
Louis Scola for Patrick Patterson. Or no, Louis Scola for Jonas or Patterson.
Okay, you're getting pretty thin now. Who's our third sub?
Terrence Ross, baby. He's coming in on the wing.
That's my point,
taking out DeMar.
None of those three guys are actually proven scorers in the league. And granted, like last year,
Louis Scola can score. If you give him the ball, he'll give you like
at this
average
point in his
scoring.
career, he needs a lot of help getting. Listen, I'm not shitting on our bench completely. What I'm saying is that I don't see an obvious answer here when it comes to scoring.
We don't want a guy to come in. Well, not that we don't want to, because Lou Williams was actually very effective in this role last year. But that's how they want to reorient the team, right? So they're not just going to have a guy that's going to come in and play 6-man in that kind of role while everyone else just stands around and tries to play defense.
No, I'm not saying
how their bench played last year.
I'm not saying that's a good idea either. Yeah. I just don't see enough shot making on the bench.
But I mean, the defense is better on the bench.
The defense is better, but I see that that period when in that mid first quarter or late first quarter, second quarter, the bench kind of comes in. I'm not right now seeing how Casey's gonna handle that situation. Does DeRozan play extended minutes and pair up with like Joseph in the backcourt? Casey's not the most adept at doing that. Remember last year the hockey lineup changes. What's he gonna do? Is he gonna do the same thing here? I have no idea. So
if he does the same thing this season with hockey lineup changes, like he's gonna get fired because the bench unit doesn't actually work as a bench unit. Like as a unit, it doesn't work.
See, that I don't see it right now. I have a lot of questions on the Raptors bench. I don't doubt their starting five. I think they're much improved there defensively. I think just adding DeMar Carroll in there just solves a lot of defensive issues. And if they just play with a little bit more discipline, just Patrick Patterson even in the starting lineup helps matters. So they're better defensively for sure in the starting lineup. But I just don't see how their bench that transition going to the bench. I'm not seeing how that's happening right now.
Okay.
I don't see how Corey Joseph can play with Terrence Ross and James Johnson and Louis Scola and be.
But that's the thing. They should never play just all 5 bench players unless it's like the game is out of hand.
Yeah.
Right. And ideally, they're gonna stagger minutes such that there's not gonna be more than 8 minutes a game where either DeRozan or both DeRozan and Lowry are out of the game. And as long as one of them is in, I think the unit will be fine. So I think the bench players complement the starters well, and I think the starter unit has what it takes to be like a top 10 offense. And defensively, if they could just be like 15th to closer to something like top 10, which I mean that'll be a huge improvement from last season.
Can I make a prediction here?
Yeah.
I think Casey's gonna wear these guys into the ground, kind of like Thibodeau. I just see that happening because he's gonna feel the need for wins. He's in the last year of his deal.
he definitely feels the need for wins.
And as soon as he sees Terrence Ross and DeLon Wright in the backcourt with like Bismack Biyombo and like DeMar DeRozan and one other guy, he's gonna be like, this is not working out. Let's go back to our starting lineup, and you'll end up seeing DeMar DeRozan and Lowry play heavy minutes. That's my fear, and that's also kind of like my prediction here.
Okay, but look, from compared to last season, last year they won 49 games. I'm saying they'll win 49 games again. They'll just play a little bit. They'll play different. But I still think they're the same quality. And you still got them for 46 wins, so it's not like either of us are expecting this huge drop off. I just think the team's going to change, and it depends on how optimistic you feel about how this change is going to translate to wins.
Yeah. Right, so there you go. So number 3, we got the Chicago Bulls coming in at 49 wins. I had them actually finishing 5th. Will had them finishing 2nd. Will, you're still big on the Bulls despite Hoyball is what it's being called now coming into the league.
I don't understand how you have them for 46 wins, to be honest, because like they have so much talent on this team. Like Derrick Rose, yeah, his game has slipped from where it was before all the knee injuries, but he's still effective point guard. I mean, the numbers don't look good on him, and some Bulls fans are really down. But it's sort of the dynamics of a player like Rose's caliber, where teams really respect his ability to drive. When he does actually make those drives, he really contorts and pressures the defense. Granted, he doesn't do that a lot anymore, but you got Jimmy Butler, who is like a top 3 shooting guard in the league, easily. Pau Gasol's obviously still got it. I mean, I don't know how he will play in Hoiberg's system because it's going to be less post oriented than what Thibodeau ran last year. But yeah, and then beyond him, like you got like Joakim Noah and Mirotic. Yeah, this is a good team. I mean, at 52 wins, I think is maybe a little bit high, just considering that last season this is not any different from last season's team, except for Bobby Portis, who I don't think will play. But I don't know. You just expect a little bit more of a bounce back from Derrick Rose, and I think this team is easily 50 plus.
Again, I think that's the key thing there, like the bounce back from Derrick Rose. I mean, that's when he's on his game, he is a top 3 NBA player, and when he's not, he's
top 3.
Fine, whatever, top 4, 5, whatever. He's a top player.
He's an all-star when he's on his game. Yeah.
Last year, I noticed that he settled for the jumper way too often.
For sure.
And that Derrick Rose that kind of took you off the dribble and finished with like 3 pump fakes in the air is not there anymore. The one stat that kind of jumped out at me was he took 1.4 threes for every free throw he took. That's not Derrick Rose, man. That's a guy who doesn't want to drive because maybe he fears injury, or maybe he fears he can't make the kick-out pass or finish the way he used to. So I think this expecting Derrick Rose to come back to Derrick Rose from like 5 years ago is a bit unrealistic. And I don't think it's going to happen. And the other thing is, do you remember Pau Gasol when he played under Mike D'Antoni? How miserable he was?
Yeah.
Like playing out.
Yeah.
He hated it. There's public comments about him hating being at the high post. Pau Gasol is effective when you dump him the ball in a face-up situation or back to the basket, and he can go left, right, do whatever he wants because he's got moves. He's got a shit ton of moves in his arsenal.
Tons.
You take him away from that low block area, and that's what Hoiberg kind of did with his bigs at Iowa State.
Yep.
You're looking at, number one, free throw attempts going down for everybody, and that was a key thing for the Bulls, is that they relied on free throws. With the style that Hoiberg is going to play there, I think their free throws are going to go down, and it's going to hurt them. I don't think Gasol is if what I've read about Hoiberg and how Hoiberg wants to play is to do more fast-paced, run and gun, move Gasol away.
That's definitely true.
Then this team is undergoing a transformation. It's not doesn't matter if they have the same players back from next season. They're undergoing a basketball transformation, how they're going to play. And I don't see how you can go 54 wins under a new coach, under a new system, with players who may not even be comfortable with the system, and their best player is essentially a declining superstar. The math isn't adding up for me.
Yeah, no, I can definitely see those concerns. I mean, it's weird that they have this relic. Well, not relic, but basically it's the exact same team that Thibodeau had. It's just that how is the roster going to be used differently? And the strength of the Bulls is in their front court. Like, when I listed off the names earlier, I forgot about Taj Gibson. And Taj Gibson is a very good player. But but it's unclear as to how they will play in Hoiberg's offense, and it's unclear how Hoiberg wants to play defense with his team. So yeah, the Bulls have looked. The Bulls have built off the same scheme and played the same offense for like 5 years now, and uh, I think Hoiberg is going to improve their offense. I think if they open up more driving lanes, I think it'll make Derrick Rose's life a bit easier, especially if you just start the possessions with Jimmy Butler operating instead of Rose, and then you can have him attack off a recovering defense and stuff. But yeah, look, if basically in order for the Bulls to do 52 wins, which is what I have them for, like Rose has to be, better than he was last season, just but not, I mean, not fully MVP type Rose, but like better than the sort of uh, jump shot happy Rose he was last season. And Joakim Noah's health has to be better because like Joakim Noah in the playoffs looked like a shell of himself, and he couldn't even make layups. So, yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. I think there's a lot of ifs around the Bulls. Let's put it that way. And
There's a lot of talent on this team, though. That's the thing.
And that's why I got them. It's not like I'm saying they're going to be shit. I got them at 40. What do I got them at? 46 wins. I think that's just accounting for a new system being in place. I just don't think it's a small matter. It doesn't matter if you got returning players. There's going to be somebody who's not happy there, so you got to factor in all that. And
I think there's going to be a trade too.
Yeah.
Like they're going to trade. Well, my prediction was Taj Gibson's going to get traded to the Pacers.
I'm surprised it hasn't happened yet.
It just makes too much sense, I think. But
let's move on. Let's go to number 2, and I got the Hawks there with 51 wins, and you had the Hawks at 52. I know Andrew's falling out of love with the Hawks, but I think you and I are we still kind of rate them. And my theory here is that this is a team that won 60 games last year. They're a system team. They're not relying on one individual. And is DeMario Carroll worth? Like, is his exit gonna cost them like 10, 12 wins? Especially when you added a guy like Thiago Splitter, who's played for the Spurs, and Tim Hardaway Jr., who's a decent player in his own right. I think their coach is good enough where the exit of DeMario Carroll and the introduction of 2 decent players isn't going to affect them a lot. Yeah, they're going to be worse defensively at the stretch 4/3, but I think there's enough in that team to compensate for that. They're still not going to be a great playoff team because they don't have any stars, and they're going to run into trouble there because when it comes down to it, they don't have guys other than Al Horford who can really just create a shot out of nothing. So that's going to hurt them. But in terms of the regular season, I don't see how you can give them any less than 50, 52 wins.
Yeah, well, it's just who's coming in to replace DeMario Carroll, right? Because Thabo Sefolosha doesn't look like he's going to be healthy to start the season because the MIPD basically shattered his ankle. We're not going to get into that, but we got Tim Hardaway Jr. coming behind that, and then Justin Holiday, who I think is pretty good. He had a sneaky good season with the Warriors last season, but he barely never played. So yeah, it's just like they have a kind of a gaping hole there in terms of perimeter defense at the 3 because Kyle Korver, while he's a very intelligent defender, and I think he doesn't get enough credit for his defense, he's not going to shut down a guy like DeMario Carroll is going to be, and he's not going to provide a huge amount of resistance. So when there's like a LeBron in town, when there's like a Carmelo in town, they're just going to run wild on this team that doesn't really have that much rim protection either. So yeah, the thing is like, I still think they have a great system, and most of their core players are back, and seems like the supporting cast has improved a little bit with guys like Thiago Splitter. And I don't know. I still think this team is an easy lock for the playoffs, and it's going to be, maybe it'll be close if the Heat are fully healthy, but I think the Hawks should probably run away with the Southeast again. So, yeah, it's a good team.
I mean that's why I did like a -8 for their total. I mean, assuming the impact of DeMario Carroll and some of the legal problems their teams are having, it makes an impact, but it's still good enough for top 2 in the East.
Yeah, for sure. And the thing is, the part of the reason is the Hawks, I don't think were as good as 60 wins, like just viscerally what that number suggests would suggest. I think they're just, let me just look up their numbers really quickly, but like 60 wins, you imagine like some sort of like dominant, unfathomable, like great offensive and defensive club. But last season they were ranked 6th in offensive defense, so I guess that does kind of reflect that. But 60 wins, like that's a really high threshold to hit, and their play kind of slipped off a little bit after that ridiculous stretch that they went on, where they won 27 out of some crazy amount of
Right.
games. So, yeah, look, it's mostly the same team as last year, but they do have one very obvious weakness now.
Yeah. So that's the Hawks, man. Good playoff team. I don't think anybody here sees any issues with them. But in the playoffs, what do you think, Will? They're gonna struggle again, right?
I don't know, struggle necessarily, but yeah, this team is not going to beat the Cavs.
Yeah.
They have nobody to guard LeBron. This is a very big problem if you are trying to win in the playoffs in the East.
Yeah.
If you're going to try to win the East and you have no one to guard LeBron, you are fucked.
All right.
That's it.
And that brings us to the number one team in the East, the Cleveland Cavaliers. Big surprise. So I'll go. Just a couple of comments on the Cavs here, man. Is that I only have them with 56 wins, and the reason I have that is because I think LeBron at this point in his career realizes that regular season don't mean shit.
Yeah, definitely.
I can see him taking 2 more weeks off, maybe another vacation at sometime after the All-Star break, whatever, just to stay fresh. And I think this is a team that, after last year's run, knows that it's all about staying healthy for the playoffs. And the regular season really doesn't matter. So I can see them actually coasting through. If they don't do that, and this is my gut feel, LeBron's due for an injury. I think he's simply due to get injured at some point.
This man is nuts as superhuman. He has only ever really gotten injured that one time he got his face broken.
That's not even
and
an injury.
He came back and then had a mask and then dunked him Tim Duncan.
Yeah, that doesn't even count. Like if you look at his game,
exactly. Yeah, he doesn't get injured, man. Remember how bad it looked when he sprained his ankle against I think the Bulls in the playoffs earlier this season, and he just kept playing the rest of the game. And it was LeBron. This guy's indestructible. So I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying he's due. And that's the only reason. First being they're going to coast, and number 2, he might get injured, and then he'll miss a few games, and he'll take his time coming back. That's the only reason I have the Cavaliers not at 60-plus wins, and I've got them at 56. But it really doesn't matter because they're going to be the number 1 seed in the East. I think that's just a foregone conclusion at this point.
Yep, definitely. And even if they're not the number 1 team in the East, they're going to be the team that represents the East in the finals.
Why are we even playing the season in the East?
Yeah, it's pretty dumb. There's got to be a secondary award, right? They got to have an FA Cup.
Always, man. We've had this discussion in the past. There needs to be a secondary tournament, a knockout style tournament, which happens throughout the regular season. Shave off 10 games from the regular season, and put those 10 games in a knockout style tournament, and you'll see fans get excited, man.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm telling you, man. Those European soccer clubs, they're onto something.
They are. Yeah, we should have relegation too, by the way.
I think we've had that discussion many a times, and I would love to see the Raptors 905 being promoted to the NBA.
I think the Raptors 905 could give the 76ers, Philadelphia 765, a run for their money. Honestly, the Sixers. I'm kidding. The Sixers will probably dominate Bruno and whatever. But would Bruno start for the Sixers?
No.
No. Would he be a rotation player for the Sixers?
Rotation. Yeah, I think.
That's how bad the Sixers are, man. We're talking about Bruno Caboclo is going to be a rotation player.
Jakar Sampson is a rotation player for the Sixers. So, that's not a stretch, but not starting. Definitely not.
Yeah, Bebe will be their third big off the bench.
I think Bebe should be the third bench off the big for the Raptors. I don't see why that's not the case, because if he can't start, I made the point 2 weeks ago, is that if he can't beat out Bismack Biyombo for minutes, this guy sucks. That should be the base requirement for an NBA player. Beat out Bismack Biyombo for some minutes. And if you can't even make a dent in Bismack Biyombo's minutes, I'm sorry, man.
Bismack's not that bad, man.
You should.
By the way, I ran into Bismack Biyombo today. I'm serious. I ran into Bismack Biyombo today. I was waiting in line at TIFF, and I got a coffee at Second Cup. And Bismack Biyombo came in the door. He was wearing Jordan gear, fully dressed as just shorts and a t-shirt, but he's 7 foot tall.
What was he watching?
And everyone else is dressed all preppy because it's TIFF.
What was he watching?
What's that? Oh no. He went to Second Cup. He got a coffee or something.
Oh, yeah. Was he with somebody?
No, just by himself. Only one person recognized him.
You?
Or came up to him and asked him for something.
Yeah.
I recognized him, but I didn't say anything to him. I wasn't going to say hey, I know who you are.
You got a Snapchat?
That's creepy.
You got a Snapchat?
I tweeted it out. No one cared about it. Yeah, only one person favorited it.
Don't worry, buddy.
That's how good Biyombo is. If you can't beat Biyombo for one fave, if
Oh, there you are. Yeah, there it's on William at William_Lou. Yeah, you're not joking. There he is. You know what?
yeah.
I'll make this public and give you a retweet from the Raptors Republic account just to make sure.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Yeah. No worries, guys.
This awkward picture of him looking at his phone.
It's very stalkerish, this picture.
It was very stalkerish, but I have to say I was in that second cup first before he came in, so I didn't follow him into that thing. I just want to make that clear.
Hey, Bismack. Hey, buddy.
I know who you are.
Hey,
No one else does.
He's like checking his phone. And there he
Yeah.
is. All right. I think this podcast has ran its course. I think it was a good discussion, man. I think we covered all teams. Some disagreements here and there, but overall we're on the same page.
Yep.
And let me just hit this retweet button on this thing. So there you go, guys. All done. Check out twitter.com/Raptors Republic, and you'll see Bismack Biyombo checking his phone at a second cup with Will staring at his ass.
That's what happened.
Okay.
That's what I'm here for, guys.
All right, man. Next week it is.
Next week. See you guys.